Hi, I'm Spyder. I'm back from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Just before New Year's Eve, just want to say before I get into my 6th YouTube session, I'd like to say that please watch Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 under Spyder's proposing the CFL Red Zone rule. Part 1 is the intro and how I come up with my CFL Red Zone rule. Part 2 is the presentation I made to the Commissioner and the CFL on my CFL Red Zone rule on January 31st of 2018, and Part 3 is their decision, the result from my presentation and the conclusion. Okay, all right, so please watch all 3 parts. Okay, I just want to say too, on my last actually part 4 YouTube session, at the end when I was really under the gun on time and I was trying to nail it down with 2 seconds left on the time clock, and that's why I was such rapid fire and speed talking. I'd like to apologize for that. And also on another part of Part 4, when I made the mistake when I said megaphone rather than megaphone. Okay, we're all human, we all make mistakes. Okay, I apologize for that. On my Part 5 YouTube session, on my first paragraph, when I read CFL fans rather than CFL teams are forced to play, and on the Bomber fan quote when on radio when he says, "What's the good of CFL stadiums when you can't even play the best players?" I said on them, meant to say in them. I can't believe I said that. That's when you're anxious and over anxious and so forth. Okay, and also on my son's hockey team tournament in Regina, when I said NFL players rather than NFL fans from Calgary that was on his hockey team, were all blown away and sold on my CFL Red Zone rule. And my first part, my Part 1 session, YouTube session on the Rick Howe show, when I said that Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule would eliminate 2 and outs in the red zone, technically I meant to say would eliminate second down stops in the red zone. We all know what a two and out is, and that's a punt. And also in my last session, again, when I was trying to clarify my qualifying analysis on my 18 guaranteed percent of average touchdowns scored amongst 9 CFL team in the red zone for the 2017 season, when I said convert kick, okay, is basically a guarantee, practically given 100% of the times. And I said easy chip shot field goal, which that was the other part. I meant to say, I should have said easy chip shot convert kick. Okay, all right. So anyway, we're all human. Now, before I get into my my 6th session, I would and the theme, I would like to talk somewhat about the current CFL format structure and how CFL teams and the basic Canadian Players Association, made up of carefully selected Canadian linemen, are controlling and basically running the CFL. Let's take their non-committing only 1-year contracts and their outrageous amount of free agency for 2019 season, for an example. 322. Can you imagine? CFL players will be free agents in 2019, okay, including Mike Riley and Bo Levi Mitchell and Travis Harris, 3 of the top CFL quarterbacks. Bo Levi Mitchell and Mike Riley are pursuing the NFL and trying out for many NFL teams, like many other top Canadian free agent players, including top Canadian players and top Canadian linemen, regardless of their unrealistic and dictating Canadian ratio in the CFL that CFL teams are forced to fill. Now let's look at the atrocious free agent numbers in the CFL in 2019. You're not going to believe these numbers. Grey Cup champion, Calgary Stampeders 41, the Eskimos 40, BC Lions 37, Tiger Cats 37, Red Blacks 34, Bombers 33, Owls 30, and only 1 under 30. Can you imagine? The Riders at 26. This is shameful and despicable. And how are CFL teams supposed to build a CFL team, or CFL fans identify with the players, CFL players, or CFL owners to sell any player jerseys or sell game day tickets with this kind of an outrageous, excessive player movement? it's in the CFL. Sports fans need to relate to players, and professional sports leagues need to be able to promote their players, which the CFL can't do under this painful, irrational, dysfunctional format structure that obviously only benefits the Canadian players and the basic Canadian Players Association made up of carefully selected Canadian linemen. So they can go more freely to the NFL and demand even more money in the CFL for Canadian players with their handcuffing Canadian ratio that they know CFL teams are forced to fill, that solely benefits them. That Ken Austin said creates a huge imbalance in salaries in the CFL between American and Canadian players, which is making it even more and more difficult, he says, to attract American players to the CFL. Ken Austin also said with their non-committing only one-year contracts that causes a massive amount of free agents, makes it almost impossible to build a CFL team that he said would really hurt the CFL, which it is doing. There is no professional sports league that runs their professional sports leagues like this and allows, like in the CFL, the Canadian players and their controlling basic Canadian Players Association to enforce only one-year contracts and to dictate to the CFL and their fans who is on a CFL roster and who starts and plays in the CFL with their guaranteed starter and huge Canadian roster ratios that the CFL has never been called out on. And I'm calling them out on, and they need to be called out on. And this is exactly why the CFL is really declining in popularity, along with other major complaints about our three-down game itself that my CFL Red Zone rule will address and completely fix, which I found in my 3.5-year survey I did in why so many sports fans in Canada only watch the NFL and not the CFL in our own country. That CFL teams also need, CFL teams also need to practice much longer than the bare minimum of only 4.5 hours a day. That includes travel time and meeting sessions, which is only half the time NFL teams practice per day, when our three-down game is much more complex and a much more difficult game to grasp. And you see the same consistent results on a CFL field, which is poor play, poor execution, and an outrageous amount of penalties by CFL teams practically every single CFL game, and make it even worse when CFL teams aren't even allowed to start and play the best available players in the CFL. So you see what you get. Now a recap on the problematic Canadian ratio in the CFL. I just wanted to recap it. I just wanted to mention something that a CFL fan posted and said, CFL football, he says, is a Canadian-invented game, okay? With 3 downs rather than 4 downs like the American game. And with a much bigger field than the NFL field. And he says with different rules than NFL rules. And he says all played in Canadian CFL cities. Says that's Canadian enough for me. But the problem is the CFL and Mr. Ambrosi, you're not listening. Okay, you're not listening. And now with Ottawa, okay, back in the CFL with 9 teams, the GMs actually, when Mark Cohen was there, they wanted the Canadian starter ratio reduced from 7 to 4. Okay, and Glenn Souther said in the Green Show as well. He agreed, said that as well, and he said also that they should take Canadian players and put them on the practice roster to develop them. Okay. And Dave Naylor said something very interesting, okay, on TSN, either on the radio or on the TSN, one of his article clips, where he says, oh, I can fix the unpopular, you know, where the CFL is becoming more and more unpopular. He said, I can fix that. He says, just abolish the Canadian starter ratio. He said, because there's too many, he says, grossly overpaid, like 200,000 plus Canadian guaranteed O-linemen playing in the CFL that fill the Canadian starter ratio that have no business being on the field, that shouldn't be there. Okay? And he says if you eliminate that and allow the best O-linemen to be recruited by CFL teams, you can have a much better product in the CFL, and he is 100% right. And Murphy, a scout for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, said when he was down to a Florida camp and asked by the reporters, why aren't there any American O-linemen here? He says, because in the CFL, the Canadian Players Association, made up of Canadian O-linemen, he says, basically, he says that they take all the O-lineman starting ratio spots to make up 7 Canadian starter players on a CFL starting roster with Canadian guaranteed O-linemen. He says that's why there are no jobs in the CFL. And also, Mr. Nine said on the green zone, he said, remember, Mr. Ambrosi, the commissioner, was part of the Canadian Players Association and took the CFL to court to stop them when they were expanding the states from of course, they wanted to eliminate the Canadian starter ratio to allow the best available players to play in the CFL like every other professional sports league can. And he went in the court and tried to stop them. Okay, so there's a conflict, I think, of interest here with Mr. Ambrosi, okay, with the Canadian Players Association and the Canadian O-linemen that are running it, and our CFL fans and the owners, okay? All right, I just wondered if I covered everything, and I think that's kind of, oh, and also, the Argonauts and the Owls, they released several of these guaranteed Canadian, gracefully overpaid Canadian O-linemen that were making $200,000 plus that couldn't even protect their quarterbacks, and they released them. So something has to change here, and Dave Naylor's right, and a lot of people are right. Okay, now I want to get into my theme and title of this session: why wouldn't the CFL want to make our three-down game a lot better with Spyder's CFL red zone rule? Let's be honest here. The CFL and Mr. Ambrosi aren't going to come to their senses and open their eyes because, like a CFL fan said, the Canadian Flag Football League, old school, never change attitude door at the CFL head office will remain tightly sealed. Also, just based on Ryan's condescending and ignorant remark he made in his email that probably came as well from Mr. Ambrosi just by what I learned about his mannerisms, and also because what Steve Armitage says that they didn't come up with it themselves and it was a fan that did, and what my son said as well, that it was basically a setup just to have me and my CFL red zone rule go away. As you see, I and my CFL red zone rule are not going away. There is something I learned a long time ago, is that you don't fail unless you give up and stop trying and stop believing in yourself, and in this case my CFL red zone rule, and they will always get off and trying to knock you down and defeat you any way they can, even if it's not credible, so they can feel superior and have power over you to feel they have won. But the CFL have not won. They have lost and have really dropped the ball, and the CFL doesn't have the power. The CFL fans and sports fans in general and all the NFL only fans and all the younger generation sports fans in Canada have the power. And if they feel my Spyder CFL red zone rule is going to make our CFL three-down game a lot better and a lot more entertaining and a lot more exciting brand of CFL three-down football to watch and be part of, then yes, Spyder CFL red zone rule can be made part of our three-down game. And during my survey, it's a St. Mary's football game in Halifax, I surveyed 2 Ottawa Rough Riders, okay? And they were blown away. They each had a player in each one of the teams, Acadia and St. Mary's, okay? Playing in AUS college, okay, football. And they were blown away by my CFL red zone rule and said, how did you come up with it? At the same time, a younger generation Bomber fan at the game said, can I listen? Can I come in and listen to this? I said, sure, come on in. And he was just blown away as well. And he says, wow, what a unbelievable, super, fantastic new CFL rule. He said, and this is the exact same injection our CFL three-down game needs, he says. Can you imagine? That was fantastic of him to say. That's the kind of impact my CFL red zone rule had on people I surveyed. And also, okay, I wanted to say that Mr. Armitage, okay, that's where I surveyed him at a St. Mary's football game and an alumni gathering that he attended, okay, for an hour. And he was fascinated by it and really sold on it. And it gave it, my CFL red zone with stamp approval. That's, like I said, that's how impactful my CFL red zone rule is, okay? So, and as well, I recently received an email from Mr. Vanstone, sports writer, Regina Leader Post, author of the book Greatest Grey Cup Game Ever, played in 1989, Riders and the Ticats. Great read, by the way. And when I informed him that my CFL Red Zone rule was now up on YouTube, Mr. Vanstone wrote back by email and said, "Thanks for sending this over, Spyder. I'll give the video a look when time allows. I wish you the best of luck with this," he says. And he says, "Anything that discourages 12-yard field goals is worth considering. Cheers, Mr. Vanstone." That just tells you the value of my CFL Red Zone rule coming from someone like Mr. Vanstone, an incredible sports writer for the Regina Leader Post. I want to go back now to Ryan's Jensen's email when he said, yes, a touchdown is a much more exciting play than a field goal. But we discuss a reduced strategy that will result if a field goal attempt is virtually guaranteed for a team, which obviously proves that Ryan and the commissioner deliberately ignored an important part of my CFL Red Zone rule, which is my attached and compatible CFL Red Zone kick that totally addresses their concern. So CFL fans and sports fans in general, and all NFL only fans, and the younger generation sports fans in Canada, what would you rather have? Ryan's and the CFL's basically boring, guaranteed, easy chip shot field goal in the red zone theory, or rather have a lot more entertaining and a lot more exciting brand of CFL 3-down football to watch that's full of drama and superbly innovative, and that will completely eliminate all the unappealing second down stops in the red zone and completely eliminate all the boring, predictable, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone or slightly outside the red zone, depending on where the second down stop was made in the red zone, resulting in more touchdowns being scored in the red zone than CFL, with Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule complemented by Spyder's new compatible CFL Red Zone kick. I think we all know what the answer is if you know anything about sports. And can you imagine the excitement and drama in the red zone live in CFL stadiums? It would be electrifying, like two younger Rider and football fans that I surveyed. Okay? And remember, Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule, what else it will do, with a guaranteed increase of 18% in more touchdowns scored in the red zone amongst 9 CFL teams in a regular CFL season, based on the 2017 54.8 average percentage of touchdowns scored in the red zone amongst 9 CFL teams, resulting in 50 more touchdowns in the red zone for a total of 200 more points scored in the CFL. And on a 20% increase, 56 more touchdowns for a total of 224 more points, and on a 25% increase, 70 more touchdowns for 280 more points if all single convert kicks are successful. That all are also obtainable and reachable numbers. And on the 37% of a CFL playing field from the goal lines, second down stops will not exist. And CFL teams would go for more on third down near the red zone to play exciting CFL 3-down football in the red zone with Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule, which will also reduce 2-and-outs. And what it would do from the business side in CFL Red Zone rule, merchandise and sponsorship tag sales would be very lucrative for the league and owners. And now I just want to put up the diagram again. If I can find it here. Put up the diagram. And by the way, I wanted to talk about something really interesting. You're going to be really interested in. As soon as I find this, put the diagram up. Okay. And before I do that, what's so important? Okay, just think about it. Just think about it. Okay. If you're at a CFL game, okay, and you see a field like that with the 20-yard line, the number 20 outlined in red in the red zone, and then, you know, nice to see in the end zone like the CFL team logos, which should be there. It's all part of branding, and at center field, the team logos should be there. And TSN could do eye-catching, stunning graphics over top of the 20-yard line with the CFL Red Zone logo, okay, with sponsorship tags, tags as well on the 35 or the 42 of my CFL Red Zone kick, same type of thing, okay, and you imagine like what that would look like and the excitement that it would create live at a CFL game. It'd be unbelievable, okay? So why wouldn't the CFL want to make our three-down game a lot better with Spyder's CFL red zone rule? That's my theme of this session. And I want to talk a little bit about something as well. My sweater, okay? The sweater I'm wearing is Grey Cup 2000, okay, in Calgary. I took my son when he was like 14, okay, turning 15 around that time. The Guess Who played, okay? They played at halftime and they played his favorite song. No Time. He was pretty excited about that. This is a little reportable. And I also took him to 2007 Grey Cup when the Riders in Toronto won the Grey Cup and they beat the Bombers. And also, sounds great, eh? And when I took him to the 2009 Grey Cup in Calgary, the 13th Man Grey Cup, when the Riders lost, the one extra man on the 13th man, when the Alouettes had another chance to kick a field goal that they missed, and they won the last play of the game, I believe by 1 point. I was there with my son. And anyway, there was something really interesting that happened that during that Grey Cup, okay, prior to the game, when two Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans came up to me, and we got talking, me and my son, and what was amazing about it, I hope I can find this, I hope that's a good enough one there. I hope so. That's a darker one, so it may come out better. There's a picture that this was at Adam AAA when Sidney Crosby played with my son at the Halifax Forum. This was a Christmas tournament. Actually brings back memories. But a few years after that, in Pee Wee AAA, a game in Atlantic, Canada, okay, where Cole Harbour Wings won the Atlantic Pee Wee AAA championship, okay? And that particular game, in the book, Sidney Crosby book, taking the game by storm. My son and I were interviewed for this book, and what was so interesting is when we were talking to these two Rider fans, and then I told them about the paragraph, okay, that I'm about to read to you, that was in the book, okay, that was the first time actually Sidney's time his picture ever went in the Daily News, and it's the first time he was ever written up in the Daily News, okay, and it says the week before Gretzky's retirement, made headlines across Canada. In the U.S., Sidney Crosby made it in the Halifax Daily News sports section, page 54. It wasn't a profile or a splash sheet feature. In fact, it was a footnote at the bottom of the roundup of local news on minor hockey. Crosby's name had appeared in scoring summaries a few times over the previous couple of years. This, however, was the first time his name broke out of the small type. And here's the large printing of it. It says, last week in the Charlottetown, Cole Harbour captured the Atlantic Pee Wee AAA Championship, defeating Frederick Canadian 6-3 in the final. And it says, my son, the tournament MVP, scored 3 goals for Cole Harbour, and Sidney Crosby scored 1, along with 2 other players that had 1 each, okay? Okay, that's really cool, eh? I thought I should show you that as well, and it's unbelievable, eh? So, also, I wanted to say that, can you imagine now in the Grey Cup, okay? And I'm going to put this up, okay? I'm going to put something up here that my son just gave me, just before I got a few minutes before I time out. My son just gave me. He gave me actually 2. Try to figure out the best one. This is going to be my new banner. It's not quite finished yet, but as you see, it says Spyder CFL red zone rule complemented by the new compatible CFL red zone kick. Football fans, if you want no more 2 down stops and 0 non-eventful easy chip shot field goals in the red zone, chant loud in the red zone. We want Spyder CFL red zone rule. We're going to have this all And this is the other one he put up too, which is a little darker and it's a little more contrasty, but so actually his favorite. Okay, so you can imagine the impact CFL fans during the 2007 Grey Cup in Calgary, while seeing another boring, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goal in the red zone, hearing CFL fans chanting loud, "We want Spyder to see for a red zone rule." Then we, the fans, would accomplish something really special and something exciting and really big together as a CFL 3-down football fan team. And that's my main objective and goal here. By building momentum and getting tons of more exposure and awareness of my super exciting CFL red zone rule, to build fan support for it, to make this happen, which would be phenomenal and super exciting, improve the power of the voice of sports fans. Okay, so I'm going to soon sign off here, and can you imagine that though? Can you imagine that? And this is what we got to build up to, and I got to get more awareness and get it out there so people can see all 6 of my YouTube sessions, especially part 1 and part 2 and part 3, but 4, 5, and 6 is very important as well. And where you're going to see us at, like I said, at the Calgary Grey Cup. And, you know, we're going to be boisterous, we're going to be loud, you're going to hear us, okay? And we're going to have the megaphone, and we're going to have banners, and we're going to have CFL hats, and we want people to, like, join us, and we'll do some workshops and give you more information about it, and you can ask questions and march with us and chant with us, okay? And you can imagine at the Grey Cup game, chanting loud at the 2007 Grey Cup game in Calgary. We want Spyder to see for a red zone rule. We want Spyder to see for a red zone rule. Also, Mr. Harmony says in 2018 he wants me to present my CFL red zone rule to minor football, high school football, and U.S. college football. Okay, and I'll get back to you in the spring with more updates and announcements. So have yourself a happy Hanukkah, okay, and a happy New Year. And thanks everybody for listening. And wish you all the best in the new year. Take care. Sign off, Spyder.